If there's any question from the audience, please go ahead. Hello, my name is Tatiana, and I'm a member of the PRADIP, people with a physical inability, and I understand that with the system, people with visual disability can obtain a mental image of obstacles and of the environment. Have you tested this system with people who are blind since birth, who were born blind? Yes. I think that the person who has tested it was blind from birth. The other person who tested it got blind at the age of 14. And the next one, this Thursday, is 19. He's a musician who has good auditive capacity, so he'll come test the system. We also have the daughter of a colleague at the university who's a 7-year-old child who is to test it next week. So this is now is when we're going to start testing the system. It would be interesting, once that you have tested it with different profiles, to draw conclusions to see for what kind of profile, what kind of disability it would be more useful. The interesting part is that what we have seen through our experience with previous tests is that we don't know how far it can go. It's people who are blind from birth who now say that they understand what a tree looks like. So it's a very promising system, but just like a baby, when you give him like a new sense of perception, starts using this new sense by test and error. This is exactly what we mean to do. We have many plans, but let's first begin by introducing the simplest, the most elemental and basic situation. Well, the system, it is foreseen to, for example, recognize faces, textures, colors, objects. If you want to find, you can tell the system to go fetch an object in the home. It can read, but this is the strongest process, enabling a person to walk down a street. And so far, it looks very promising. Hello, my name is Rubén Sansegundo from the Polytechnic University in Madrid, and I wanted to, first of all, congratulate Guillermo for his presentation and for the work that he has been conducting in Spain and also at the European level. And I have a couple of questions. The video processing, I understand that it's a rather costly process. It's the part which carries all the computational load of the PC. Well, the sound convolution is also very important, but the depth map is really being difficult. We are now working with, I don't know, it depends on the amount of information. Depth map, 20 breaths per second we can process, taking into account that the resolutions and the camera can be much higher, but we work at a rather low resolution, frames per second. I'm not afraid of using more resolution because I know that the hardware is going to evolve more rapidly than the rest, but nowadays we are working in a double core, 0.7 or something, but we are now going to migrate to the platforms that I just showed you, the Linux. We need to see how it works, and when we do, then we will manufacture this micro PC, making sure it's tailor-made. I have a question. The blind normally have very fine hearing, and I wonder whether the artificial signals that you generate interfere with the perception of the blind person. Yes, of course it interferes. They are wearing headsets, but also a hat also interferes. So if a blind person wears a hat, they hear differently. When people test this for a while, of course, when the person starts wearing headsets, and in the headsets you have the channel a little bit more in depth so that they recognize the frequency better, it does affect them. But once that they've worn this for 2 or 3 weeks, it does have a price, but of course the advantage is much more than this small loss. It's like when you change glasses, where you find you need a certain period of adaptation. That is, the training, the colocalization through sound does not disappear. And as you use that, the regulation, so everything will improve eventually, but first you need to train your ear to know where the obstacle is. And once a person starts using this on a regular basis, then he will realize that the information that he obtains is very abundant. Can you combine this with artificial signals? Yes, everything, of course, is possible. Microphones with this. We have placed 2 microphones at ear level, but most probably the sound localization functions do not enter through a microphone placed outdoor. The microphone should be within the ear, in the ear, and we don't know whether that would be a good answer, because we would have to place the microphone in the ear and we would have many noise problems. But perhaps in the future it is a possibility. Thank you. All right, I would like to also congratulate you for your work and for this explanation. I do have a couple of questions, though, around the tests. Have you tested this on users at the initial phases of design? And now that you are going to test it on users, have you identified the best profile, the one that would yield the best results? No, well, not really. Previously, in the previous project, it was meant for people who are completely blind, but there's also developments for people who have reduced vision or who are visually impaired. But there's so many different cases that you would have to develop a system for each person, and that is a line of work that we also have. For people who are completely blind, any person who are volunteers would be able to test the system. The tests that we have done were about basic functionality and tests where we had to create circuits in a certain time, or to cover a certain route in a certain time, coming and going. But this is something that not everybody can do, so we don't not have an objective measure to say that as an average these people blind from birth, or these 10 men or 10 women do it better or faster. Scientific data to say that one profile is better than another, we do not have yet. So to identify, you use amplitude, volume, and frequency. We are currently using only one type of sound, a clack, in the object, from the object. So there's no identification. There's only shapes. The identification is something that the person's brain should do. So that if you are moving and you see that somebody is standing with arms at rest, you don't know whether it's a person or a tree. You hear on the person's surface a series of clacks. So that's something we have done. The recognition of people, bicycles, holes, sort of free corridors, etc. But if we want to work on a portable equipment at 20 frames per second whilst the person is walking, we don't have that yet. We have this and it works, but of course it is very costly. Well, thank you very much then. Well, Paolo, I think that there's quite a few questions for you, so that if any of you have any questions, now is the time. I do have a few of them. What difference is there vis-à-vis the project presented to us by Guillermo? Because I understand that we are using a stereoscopic system. You compare the two images and then you translate all this into sounds. Well, this is what I wanted to discuss with him, but unfortunately he had to go out. I don't know how they have implemented this stereo vision. I think this is one of the key points to any system similar to this, because of the computational load, and it depends on the final price and the final speed of the system. In Valencia, they have decided to use the psychoacoustic implants, which we believe has a number of drawbacks which need to be taken into account, even if we want to solve it, even if it's necessary to train people. Also, using headsets is something that all the people that we interviewed, blind and non-blind, is something that we should try and avoid, because for people who are visually impaired, it is their main source of information. It is where they see where the car comes from. So we need to enrich this information and not replace it. So that for now we are going to use the bone transmission to try and combine, respecting the natural echolocation of the people. Do you have any prototypes so far? No. We only have the software of the image processor. This year we are starting to work on certification. We're trying to do a totally software prototype first to validate it with the users, and then implement it on microchip and whatever portable device we can find. Thank you very much, and now we are going to close this workshop and we can leave for lunch. Thank you very much for attending.